It's John Kearon here, and I'm joined by Tom. Are you there, Tom?
I am. Hello.
Hi. We're going to basically talk about wisdom of crowds, predictive markets, and innovation in general. You know, how the two things kind of can help each other, and also some ideas for you on how concepts, you know, it might be additional sense. So look, I hope if you're joining us from the US, good morning. I think it's still just good morning, or perhaps you're having a bite to eat over lunch while we're doing this. And if you're joining us from China, frankly, you've got insomnia. So what are you doing up? I hope we won't put you to sleep. All right, let's kick off. On the screen, we have Homer Simpson and Daniel Kahneman. I think you know which is which, but the reason for both of them is a kind of framework for the whole webinar, and the framework for what the wisdom of crowds represents in the context of how people make decisions. I certainly kind of grew up in my professional career, and I suspect everyone listening probably has, with the left brain, right brain model of how people make decisions. And because the brain's 50-50, we've just assumed that consumers make decisions rough rational. It felt plausible, it felt certainly sensible, and I think the whole of marketing, whether it be concept development or advertising development or packaging, we strive to get a blend of engagement. It's like the fist of a brand proposition wrapped in a velvet glove of emotion. Is probably not a bad summary of what most marketing tries to do. And then along comes Daniel Kahneman and the behavioral scientists, and they kind of go, well, look, here is a better metaphor for how the brain seems to work, which better fits the facts and all of the experiments that then prove it, which is what they call System 1 and System 2. System 1 is the original brain. It's one because it was the part of the human brain that formed first, and it's the feeling brain, if you like. It's the instinctive, intuitive, fast thinking. So in Daniel Kahneman's book, Thinking Fast and Slow, it's the fast feeling, emotional part of the brain. System 2 is the slow part of the brain, and it's 2 because it was developed latter. It's the frontal lobes, and it's the slow, cognitive, deliberative kind of part of the brain. And it's amazing. I mean, it enables us as humans to do things other animals can't do, so it's not to be underestimated. But here's the rub for decision making. If you split 1 and 2 into computing power, System 2, the kind of clever bit, would be 50 bits of computing power, and System 1, the feeling brain, the instinctive fast brain, would be 11 million. So it's as far away from 50-50 rational emotional in their belief as it is almost possible to get. And if there's one kind of message, I think, of this new model, this new making, it's this: we think much less than we think we think. And I mean, I've been as guilty as anybody, in I suppose, overestimating the amount of thinking that goes on in, the world of commerce and how we make decisions and how we do our marketing. So this is the framework that I want to kind of revert to and to reference as we go through, because hopefully it'll become clear how the wisdom of crowds fits in to a System 1 approach to market research. And I think I'm afraid if I had to be critical of quantitative market research, it is largely a System 2 measurement system of propositions, learned propositional conscious brain stuff, whereas what the behavioral sciences are teaching us is that the vast majority of decisions are made fast, instinctively, intuitively, metaphorically, if you like. It turns decision making turns out to be the press office. That's system 2. It post-rationalizes decisions that we've made instinctively. Tom, I've probably over-witted on too long, but is that fair? Would you add anything to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think my takeout from System 1 and System 2 in research is that it's all about context. We've always in research, the key to research is trying to get the context of the consumer decision right. And we've always assumed, if we assume that the consumer decision is rational or half rational, as John was putting it, then you want to kind of build surveys and create surveys which encourage people to think quite hard about their opinions, what they would do, predicting their behavior. But if it isn't like that, if it's kind of intuitive, instinctive, probably kind of copycat in a way, as I think we'll get onto, then you don't want necessarily research to do that. You need a whole different approach to research. So hopefully that's kind of what we can start demonstrating.
Okay. So let's start with a model, which if you previous webinar and ones in the future, we will be using this as a framework to discuss different types of research and different types of marketing. Today, what we're going to do is look at social, because that's the wisdom of crowds. But just to give you a sneak preview of the others, so just to put the whole thing in context, environmental is the world of context. No decision is made out of context, and context drives our decision-making in the most enormous way. An example for market research, which we'll do in justice another time, is packaging testing, where at the moment people are allowed to scratch their chins and to take as long as they want, really, to answer the quantitative questions about pack design. And if you put people under time pressure, which is basically how we all shop all of the time, then you can get completely different results. Anyway, more of which another time. The personal area is how you feel makes the most enormous difference to what. Buy lots, feel nothing, do nothing. And that's very much the world of advertising testing. Measuring emotion is the single best way to predict the commercial success of communications. But when it comes to innovation, Tom and I are going to take you through the social side of things, and so let's start the social side. I mean, Mark Earl's book, The Herd, is very good on this, and I think much underestimated in marketing, which is the power of copying. Mark Earl suggests that we should be called Homo mimicus rather than Homo sapien. We're the copying one, not the thinking one. And human beings as social animals, we're really good at copying. And the reason is because it's a cognitive shortcut. It means we don't have to use system 2. We just basically copy. Copying is a system 1 strategy, and it's not a bad strategy. If everyone's doing something, do the same. As we know, stock market bubbles where it can harm you, but generally it's not a bad strategy. And talking of perhaps negative things, it does lead to some odd successes, like multicolored plastic clogs, like Crocs, which surely is proof that we copy blindly. Anyway, a couple of experiments just to share the sort of social animal side of our decision making. This was an experiment with an honesty box where people took milk and they put money in for the milk. The only thing that changed each week was the picture behind the box. One week it was flowers, then eyes, flowers, eyes, etc. And I hope you can see very quickly from the graph that in the weeks that there was a picture of eyes, people were more honest. We're social animals, we respond to it. The other experiment I like was the pretzel seller. So basically there was somebody selling pretzels, walking through a busy selling pretzels, on average 1 packet per carriage. In scenario 2, they had somebody walking in front of the pretzel seller eating pretzels as if they've just bought a packet and they're returning to their seat. And now 3 people per carriage buy pretzels. The third scenario is they planted 2 people in each carriage eating pretzels, and now they sell on average 7 packets per carriage. So the copying side of our nature, we're not even that aware of it sometimes, but it's an enormous impact on us. Now, let's bring this back into the world of concept testing and predictive markets, wisdom of crowds. The central premise of quantitative market research is that we must find the target audience and ask them, our battery of carefully selected questions, and make sure it's a representative sample and it's sample to be robust. And there's a problem with this when it comes to predicting what we'll do in the future, because we are unreliable witnesses both to our motivations for things and our future behavior. We're not good at predicting what we will do in the future. I mean, we're not lying. It's not that we're lying. It's just that we're not actually that good. And the behavioral sciences are showing that we have all sorts of ticks and quirks that make this so. For example, 50% of Swedish men in one study claimed to be in the top 10% of best drivers, which obviously is impossible, and I'm afraid it's not a Swedish thing. It's probably just a male exaggeration. It's something no one likes to be, perceived as below average in anything. Anyway, so that's part of the problem. So if you take what market research currently is, which is me research, what we did is we turned it on its head and said, well, look, if we're social animals, then actually we are really good at other people. So contrary to kind of one of the golden tenets of quantitative research, which is you must never ask people about other people, we actually said, no, why not? We're better at predicting what other people will do than we are actually at predicting our own behavior. And I know that's, that's quite a challenging statement, but there is a lot of evidence from wisdom of crowds to show that to show the truth of that. So the main one is an academic exercise that's been running for over 30 years now, the Iowa electronic market. And it's significant because it's to do with political elections, which of course is the history of, which was born out of political polls in America, and has given us, the best tools we have for predicting these things. Now, the way the Iowa electronic market works is they took 500 mainly white middle-aged guys in Iowa, and instead of saying how they would vote, they basically buy and sell shares in the candidates, and they're basically giving a gut feel of what they think other people are going to do. Shouldn't work, according to classic market research system 2 theory. But the point is, this is actually a system 1 technique. It's a gut feeling about what other people will do, and as social animals, do you know what? It does work, and it works better than our current best polling techniques. So over now something like 700 elections, the predictive market, the IEM, has been more accurate than the most accurate poll in each of those elections 3/4 time. That's that switched us on to exploring its power, its potential, if you like, in concept testing. Because classic, monadic, gold standard concept testing, find the target audience, show them one idea only, and assess it, purchase intention, classic kind of metrics. By contrast, the way that predictive markets works is you take 15, it could be 20 ideas, it could be 10, a battery of ideas, a group of 500 people, it's just a crowd, doesn't matter who, and you play a game. And the game basically is, imagine that you own shares in all of the ideas we're going to present to you. All we want you to do is to separate them into 2 piles. Would you probably buy shares in it because you think it would be a hit in the market, or would you probably shares because you think it would be a flop? And then, which of the ones that you would probably you would sell your shares because you think you'd lose everything, you'd lose your shirt, and why do you think people wouldn't like it? And then which of the probably buy would you choose to double your shares because that's the one you think will be the hit in the marketplace? And again, why? And actually even, and who do you think it would appeal to? So rather than, telling people, you just ask, It gives you two very important figures. One is the percentage of 500 people who choose to probably buy shares, which is incredibly stable. Doesn't matter if you shift the concepts around, you get the same percentage. And it's also normable, so you know whether you've got something that's properly top quintile or above average or below average. And the second is the net preference, which is the percentage of people choosing to double minus those choosing to sell all. And that really gives you some serious discrimination between ideas. What it gives you is an accurate, a proven technique, because it pulls out the same winners, those rare winners that in monadic testing. But where it's significantly better is anyone that's done a lot of concept testing probably, unfortunately, has had this experience. You put in 6 reasonable ideas, you get 6 that have all come out around the norm. Everything drops, to the norm, and you're really none the wiser about whether one is better than another. And you'll see in a minute that predictive markets, the wisdom of crowds, this system 1 concept testing technique is much better at pulling apart good from deeply average. The last one, which is useful, is it also, through the energy of buying and selling, gives you a sense of which ideas might be the controversial but breakthrough ideas, more of which in a minute. Okay, has it been done around the world? Yes, I think over 16,000 ideas have been tested this way in every category, right the way from the unlikely categories like pharmaceuticals, which would normally be done with doctors but have been done with a crowd successfully, right the way through to markets which are much more mass anyway, soda or beer or whatever. But it works across categories and it works across countries in the same way. So what I want to do is share, if you like, the 3 pillars of metrics that make up the composite score. So the first one is the probably buy that I mentioned a minute ago. So this is the percentage of people choosing to probably buy. And this is 24 ideas. And you can see that 3 of them are top quartile, and then another 8 or so are above average, and the rest are frankly below average. And we would never recommend launching low average idea on probably buy. This is a really important score. To give you a really kind of correlation, these are 13 food products that have gone on to be launched. And remember, this is an early stage screening tool, but we have a 0.7 correlation between the percentage probably buy scores and the actual in-market sales. The second pillar is this net preference. So what you're looking at here in green are the people choosing to double on those ideas. This is, in their opinion, the idea that will be the biggest hit in the market. And then in red, this is the one they think would be worst. And this is where, hopefully, at a glance, you can see that it really pulls ideas apart. It separates wheat from chaff, the good from the deeply average. And then over on the right are some interesting ones, which we call pause for thoughts. This is where there's a lot of trading, so there's a lot of energy, but it's cancelling each other out. So some people think it's the best, and some people think it'll be a disaster. Those ideas are often the controversial ones, and rather than just throw them away, because on average they're the same as you can see, the ones with no energy, but actually before you just throw them away, pause for thought, because there might be something really interesting. So to show this discrimination at work, this is a real project which was on 7 bubblegum ideas, and you can see hopefully the grey monadic scoreline, and there was no significant difference between any of the ideas. I mean, this is tested with kids. What's not to like? It's bubblegum. The same ideas, tested, by the way, we did a kids crowd out of it as an experiment, and we also did an adult crowd and got the same result, reassuringly. But there's much more discrimination, and you can see that concept 1 is the one that you should invest in, and the others are becoming, much more average or below average, frankly. The third pillar is emotion. This is how people feel about an idea. And you can see the 7 emotions are neutral, and then they're stacked on the right. So you've got surprise and happiness, which are like the top 2 box score. You've got neutral in white, and then you've got the negative emotions. And this is critical because how you feel drives what you do. So very important score. Finally, you've got some useful diagnostics. So what's the main benefit? People can express in their own words, how would they improve the idea? What's good about it? What's bad about it? What's the main benefit? And this is, as you can imagine, incredibly useful for diagnostic reasons why something's not working or working and how it might be improved. Now, what I wanted to show you was what we're now trying to do with all of our BrainJuicer tools, whether it be advertising or concept testing or insights or packaging testing, which is to use a system 1 composite summary, if you like, of the potential of an idea, of an advert, of a product, of a pack, which is a 1 to 5-star rating. Yeah, very simple. Just in the case of concept testing, 1 to 2 stars, we would never recommend launching that as is. It's below average. It might be possible to improve it, so you get a sense of whether it's possible. And it's only where it's polarizing, where actually it's become average. On average, it's not very high, but because it's highly polarizing, and that might be worth considering. But generally, don't launch it. You need a 3-star idea in order to get into above average and get a positive return and a reasonable success. 4- and 5-star ideas are starting to become the stuff of famous launches, famous marketing, and that's really what we're encouraging clients to aim for. Just to put this into perspective with some real ideas, at the top end you can see Red Bull. So Red Bull was a 5-star idea, hugely successful. Canned champagne, which I'm afraid breaks all the category rules of champagne, and sometimes that can be good, sometimes that can be a breakthrough, but I'm afraid in this case not. And indeed it failed in the marketplace. A more controversial idea, so this would be a good example of a pause for thought idea, which is the Marmite rusks. So for those of you that haven't had the pleasure of Marmite, it's a yeast paste, and it tastes as disgusting as it sounds, frankly, in my opinion. Some people love it, others hate it, and that's part and parcel of the polarization here. Now, it was launched, and actually it's been a slow burn, but it's been pretty successful. So that's what I mean by something that's polarizing. Sparkling cranberry in the middle there, and then Aunt Bessie's. This is a roast potato, but it's midweek mini roasties, and it's as simple as it's the introduction of the midweek peel and chop and cook and roast your own potatoes that has made that successful. So a few other examples, and then we'll pause. While I'm doing this, any questions, type them out, because we'll get to a pause, and there's another section, but we'll do some questions, I think, on predictive markets and wisdom of crowds as a system 1 concept testing technique as a better way to to understand the potential of things. So this is Marmite Squeezy, which was launched. It was a 5-star idea. You can see on the left there just how clear it was as a winner, and indeed it's been hugely successful. A Dairy Milk Crunchy. This is a biscuit with the Cadbury Crunchy kind of brand, but also the texture in the middle, which was a 4-star idea and has also been extremely successful. And then Febreze, P&G launched this, and it was product of the year. It's a 4-star interestingly, for those of you that love these sorts of comparisons, in the little table, you can see the monadic test and the prediction from a gold standard monadic test of 5 variants of Febreze when they launched and how they would do. That's purchase intention. And then you've got the predictive market that we ran with the prediction there. And you can see on the right that the predictive market, the crowd, were much more accurate in what the likely market share was going to be between the 5 variants. Just interesting. Okay, and then the last one is Cardio Plus, which has gone on, it was a 4-star idea and it's gone on to be twice as successful as the nearest competitor. All right, so before we go on to how to write concepts, because we've got an opinion on how System 1, how to write concepts to better fit System 1, should we pause? Tom, I don't know if there are questions coming in already.
They're wrong, but I kind of got a thought. If anyone has a question, now is the time to type it, and then we'll get to it either in this little break or we'll get to it at the end. I guess what strikes me about this and about the 5-star system is that if you think about it, the kind of narrative around products and concepts, if you compare it to the narrative around ads, everyone knows there are great ads, and people in general, you get some people kind of grumbling about research and testing and such like, but in general, great ads, you know, there's a history of research being associated with great ads. But with great products, a lot of the products that really become kind of hero products, you get a lot of people saying, like kind of, you know, Steve Jobs and the iPhone, and James Dyson, the British inventor, and his kind of Dyson fans and air blades. Well, we don't use research, you know, our products are too good for research. So I think one of the kind of things that we ought to challenge ourselves to do as an industry is say, what we need is testing that's so good that it would find an iPhone, that it would find, you know, testing good enough for Steve Jobs is, I think, what we're trying to set ourselves here. Would you agree?
I would agree. That get debated, like the Dyson hand dryer, you know, air dryer, and the original Dyson would be good examples, are often those ones that I think would come up as polarizing pause for thought ideas. They're the ideas that would change a category. You know, they're very difficult for people to predict our future behavior. Just what, you know, we were talking about at the beginning of the social animal thing. We're better at predicting what other people might do than we are ourselves, our own behavior. And I think that's part of some of the challenges. For classic things, you know, the first time cash point machines were introduced, apparently they were totally rejected in market research. No one could imagine, you know, going to a hole in the wall to take cash out. The original Sony Walkman was totally rejected in market research. And these things, I think, you know, research good enough, smart enough maybe, you know, to help predict things that could go on. Be massively our research challenge. Yeah, I think it's a great challenge.
We've got a quick question before we move on to the next bit from Lisa Horwich. How does this work in business-to-business feature presentation prioritization? Sorry, not presentation, prioritization. So what's the B2B application?
Yeah, I mean it's. I know that it is going to sound unlikely. But if I give you the pharmaceutical example as a halfway house, so Roche Pharmaceuticals were fascinated by this, and they said, well, look, you know, we test our new drugs, you know, whether it be with cardiologists or rheumatologists or, you know, cancer specialists. Are you really saying that a crowd of 500 kind of consumers could pick out the winners every bit as well as the physicians, you know, specialist physicians? And it was like, well, that's the theory. Shall we give it a go? Each of those indications, each of those specialists, where we took the results that had been achieved with the medical specialists and we reran it with consumers. And in 3 out of 3 cases, the crowd picked out the same, you know, top quartile winners in the same order, and we presented that paper at a pharmaceutical conference and won, you know, an award for it, you know, because it's pretty challenging. I believe, and we haven't done that much, but I suppose that's getting towards business to business, even with doctors. But yeah, it works. It seems to work for anything where it's a democratic decision, if you like. And so as long as the business-to-business thing, people are voting with their wallet, it's still, even if it's more narrow, it's people. There's nothing odd happening. It's not like hedging. So by the way, as this to try and predict the stock market, gold price, share prices, etc. And it's not bad, but it's not great either, because it's much more complex what's going on with people hedging and buying forward and shorting and all that good stuff. But where it is a fundamentally democratic decision, i.e. how many people choose to buy something, the crowd seems to be inordinately wise.
Okay, thanks, John. We can now head back into the concept bit. No more questions yet, but to everyone listening,
keep them coming.
Keep them coming.
Okay.
There will be questions.
So literally just a few minutes. I'm just going to take 5 minutes most, just to share an opinion, a perspective on how I think concepts could be better written. It's not just better written to get a better score. I mean, how could we explore possible ideas and pick out better ideas? Let me crack in. I think it'll become explanatory. Here are concepts: insight, benefit, reason to believe. Pretty much every company we work with and have ever seen write there, some variation on this, but pretty much that's the schema. It seems sensible, and I think it's a reflection of what I said right at the beginning of the left brain, right brain model of decision making. In here, you've got a bit of insight, a bit of emotion, you've got benefit, and certainly the rational bit of the reason to believe. And in that, you've got the kind of fist of the proposition wrapped in some, velvet glove of emotion. Yeah. And if we had a look at this would be a classic concept, and a pretty good one in the scheme of things. So strong teeth are important for the overall health of your mouth. Wouldn't it be great to have an easy way to help strengthen and protect your sensitive teeth between brushing? Sensodyne sugar-free sticks are a great tasting chewing gum that's gentle on the teeth and provide ongoing daily protection. It contains calcium softens that gently clean as you chew. Sensodyne sugar-free sticks, a gentler way to clean and protect your teeth. And I hope, listening, you can agree that's a classic and a pretty good, kind of concept overall. So, so far so good. But the two things that we have found from all the testing, that we've ever done, is the fewer the words, the better the concept. Less is more. And the single-mindedness is critical. And the third, which I'm afraid we haven't really found from concept testing directly because so few concepts express it, but we know from other work, is make it emotional. You have to get an emotional response. Feel nothing, do nothing. Feel lots, buy lots. So what I wanted to introduce is a couple of controversial ideas, I know. So the first one is to things that we should say that in the world of behavioral sciences and System 1, we all need to embrace the idea of experimenting in order to determine what might be better. So just like we experimented with predictive markets and broke all the rules of concept testing and discovered a breakthrough, we think, in the way that you can identify concepts, let's experiment with different ways of writing concepts. And one of the things I would urge you to experiment with is to drop the insight. The insight is absolutely critical. So I'm going to be almost kind of contrarian. I know I'm in danger of sounding like it's a contradiction, but I don't think it is. The insight, or a spring sight as we call it, an insight so good it springs you somewhere, is critical to the business, to the team doing innovation, to know which direction you're heading, to know what it is that would turn consumers on. But in the end, the actual concept is about the expression, it's about the manifestation that taps that insight. Having the insight there helps it. Basically, it's either a good expression and it successfully taps the insight, or it doesn't. Perhaps even more controversial, I would urge you to at least try some concepts which have no reason to believe, because the reason to believe inevitably biases it towards the more rational. And look, so many successes, you'd be hard-pressed to say what was the reason to believe behind these two ideas. So let's take Domestos, pink Domestos, which when it launched was the product of the year. It was the fastest selling item in the supermarkets. It's a pink one. I mean, and Unilever didn't concept test it, because it just was one of those exceptions. It got through, and it was hugely and surprisingly successful, I think it's fair to say. Sticking with the pink theme, the Motorola, literally when they introduced the pink one at Christmas, it was the hit product of that particular Christmas. And again, you know, you'd struggle to write a classic concept with an insight and a reason to believe. And I think what I suppose we're trying to push concept development towards is what happened with the Pepperami all those years ago, which was basically, let's express what it could be, this product, in lots of different ways, almost as an adcept. And they did many dozens, I believe. And the idea of an animated, animating the Pepperami as a bit of an animal was the one that came through and won. And, I don't think there's any, magic silver bullet, if you like, but I would urge, I just think that the classic way of writing concepts isn't helping us make them feel exciting and tapping system one. I think let's try and write concepts that make it much more emotional, because just as it is with advertising, it is with concept development. Make my brand famous is what it should be about. Brand share equals fame times availability, and the way you do that is make it emotional. All right, so that's the model. Any questions?
Okay, at the moment, we don't have questions, but I know that we had a couple of very good ones in the previous webinar, so I'll give you a second chance to answer a couple of those. But if anyone does have questions, now is the time to get typing, and I will pass them on to John, and he will answer them. Alternatively, if there's a question that you want to kind of ask privately, we'll be showing our contact details at the end of the webinar. But John, I know that in the previous webinar, someone asked how this applies to qual. How does this kind of sync with qual research? And because obviously, qual has played a big part in innovation work over the years, and especially now in the kind of age of the MROC and the kind of other sort of community and ethnographic stuff that's going on. What is the role of qual in the sort of system one innovation?
Yeah, I think it's like anything. It can be used for good or ill. The problem with qual, let's start, since that seems to have been the theme here, the problem with classic quantitative testing. The problem with qual can be one person says something in a group. I'm talking about focus groups to start with, and everyone else just agrees. And there's a kind of group effect, which is, well-known problem, which however hard you try and, kind of aim off for, it colors everything. Now, what we try and do, and I think the way to get the best of both, is to extract people's independent, private opinions first. So, because in predictive markets, to be able to see what everyone is trading in. So there are some versions which have like a market. So just like a stock market, you can actually see what the rest of the crowd is trading in. It unfortunately exaggerates the result because people copy, like we said before. If I can see what everyone else is doing, then I'll generally copy. So it's much better to extract people's thoughts independently and then share it back to the group. Because then if you share with the group, this is what you all think, or this is what 500 people think, the qualitative diagnostic reaction to that can be really revealing and rich and insightful, because it almost helps you explain it, and it avoids you going off in the wrong direction. And I think communities, online communities, allow you to do that, because you can do it iteratively and you can reveal things as you go.
Great. We've got a and it's to do with your reframing of how to write concepts, which has actually on all these webinars proved quite controversial. So I know you'll want to get stuck into this. We've got a couple of questions about it, so they're kind of linked, so I'll read them both. Here's Batul's: how to articulate the emotive without expressing the reason to believe. Can you give an example? And then what's the benefit in not giving a reason to believe? I see the two examples where they almost didn't need one, but we work in OTC, that's pharmaceuticals. We can't imagine offering no reason to believe on our products. That's from Alison Lowry. So can you speak to the kind of, there's pushback against your attempt to get rid of the reason to believe, John?
Yeah. Okay. Let's see if I can do justice to it. I completely understand, first off, in OTC, which is, if you like, the soft version of the Roche pharmaceutical example I gave. This is medicine. And there are lots of other categories you can imagine, would fall into that sort of serious. This is serious products with serious functional reasons why we buy it. Surely the RTB is kind of critical. What I would first off say as a framework for thinking about it is there are categories where we need a greater post-rationalization, but that's what changes. Decisions are still incredibly system one, intuitive, instinctive, and emotional, but we need a greater post-rationalization. So other categories that, buying a house or buying a car, the two biggest purchases that most of us make in our life, actually, the truth is we fall in love with something, it feels right. But then the post-rationalization is much greater. We need to explain it to friends, family, etc. And if you take OTC, this is a little bit a real one, sleeping pills, apparently blue sleeping pills are significantly more effective than any other color of sleeping pill, because we associate blue as a relaxing color. This is true, by the way, of every country apart from Italy, and I don't know, perhaps Argentina. I'm just trying to think who else plays in blue, but because the football team play in blue, so blue makes you excited. Another OTC example I'm aware of is that the bigger the pill, the more it is perceived to work. And these are all placebo effects. In fact, the placebo effect is hugely well known as a meaningful, statistically, kind of robust effect, bigger than most of the chemical compounds themselves, often. And I think that is at work with brands. People, you'll know, branded analgesics are perceived to literally work. People claim that they work better than own label. And this is totally system one stuff. And so I'm not saying that there can't be successful concepts that have RTBs. I'm just saying try, experiment, give yourself permission to try some without the RTB, or at least recognize that it's just a post-rationalization, but try stuff that's to do with color, to do with smell, to do with other things that you'd struggle to articulate it as an RTB. Sorry, I got carried away, I know. Bit of a long answer.
So, well, there's a follow-up you'll be pleased to hear, but no, the follow-up is that it sounds like you're saying there is a reason to believe, but the company may not just need to say it. And I think, yeah, it's an articulation thing, isn't it? It's ways to articulate sometimes what there will be examples of reason to believe, correct me if I'm wrong, John, where actually articulating the why of it, like in the kind of, pink domestos that you talked about, would actually seem facile or idiotic, even if it's based in something that we actually know.
Yeah, I think that's right, and that's a judgment, isn't it? Whereas in an OTC you could add the RTB, but I think it's not to make the category error of assuming that the RTB is driving persuasion. It's there as the post-rationalization. There's something else that's appealing to our system one, and that's the real reason that someone's engaging and buying it. And I think that's just a better understanding of how decisions are really being made.
Okay, we've got a question about the respondent experience here from Sandeep Narang. What does the respondent exercise look like on the screen? Do they move concepts around in buckets or decide to buy and sell one at a time?
One at a time. I mean, we experimented, as I would recommend with all of these things, so that you find the optimal. We experimented, and what we found worked best was one at a time. So we introduced 10 ideas, 15 ideas. I think we share how many ideas, and we're going to show them one at a time, and people are literally making a binary decision. There's no middle ground. We don't allow a middle ground. So it's literally you probably buy or probably sell. That's it. Just whether you believe that this will be, a hit or a miss in the market. And then, once you've done the exercise for the 10, the 15, the 20 ideas, then you get shown the list of the ones that you chose to probably buy, and you have to pick the one that you would double, and then you get shown the list of the ones that you chose to probably sell, and you have to choose the one that you would sell all your shares. And then you say why, and we take that concept and keep it on the screen so that you can then say why you think people would like it or hate it or who it would be for, etc.
Okay, we've got a couple more questions, and they feel kind of linked to me, so I'll treat them as such. One from Susan Griffin. Does it work in all regions, and are there variants that you see that are cultural? And then taking that question about variants almost down to the individual level, Batul Batalvi is asking, effective appeals are unique for different individuals. So how do we know which one will move everyone? That's affective, not effective, if it makes sense.
Okay.
How do we know which one will move everyone, or are there different mindsets?
Well, I think what the crowd is doing, what we are as social animals able to do, is to have a good guess about what most people will do. That's the underlying reason that the predictive markets wisdom of crowds works. Does it work equally across categories? Yes. Does it work equally across countries? Pretty much. So to give you the precise System 2 data, not that the System 2 you'll remember this, but in classic monadic concept testing, there is up to a 50, I repeat, 50-point difference between from Germany and Holland, which I think are the toughest markers in the world, down at 40, 42, and Guatemala, Nigeria, etc., that are up at 92, 94 as a top 2 box score. Massive difference, and that's why you need norms by country to calibrate. And frankly, if people listening have had to do research in Africa and Latin America, there's an argument that you just can't get any discrimination at all because everyone loves everything and they're just being nice. In predictive markets, those same countries, I think there is something like a 8-point difference. So there is a difference in the same direction, but it's pretty small. Yeah, and so we do add a normative database for the percentage of people probably buying, because that's the normable, but it's a small difference. So it seems that this exercise, this idea of predicting what other people will do, using, and we have used pocket money when it's kids, by the way, and we have used pocket money or kind of betting in countries where shares aren't so easy as a concept, but it seems to work, and it just allows people to express what they believe their fellow countrymen will do. And you do need to do it with the country, by the way. So You can't get a global group to predict what will be a hit in Colombia. You do need to do that in Colombia or in Brazil or in America. That's probably worth saying.
Right. Well, that's that's it for our audience questions. Obviously, if you want to, now we can I think probably show the contact slide. And if you want to get in touch, here is the details of how. You can email either John or I at at our addresses, and there's our other as well, to talk through anything that you've heard here or kind of discuss predictive markets further. We've got lots of kind of literature and other kind of examples and things that we're happy to share on a more individual basis. Thank you for the excellent questions that we got in. This series of webinars has produced some really good questions, which is terrific. And I hope you've enjoyed John's look into the world of System 1 and System 1 concept testing and innovation. So thanks very much to you, and thanks very much, John.
The organizer has ended the session.